जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे। जय पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व। जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज, नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज। जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ जय बालादेवा जय सुभद्रा देवी। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, नित्य गौर हरि बोल। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ब्रह्म मध्व गौड़ी आचार्य वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीप धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 40. This chapter is entitled Questions by Vidura. Aho pṛthāpi dhriyate rbhakārthe rājarṣi-varyeṇa vināpi tena yastva eka-vīro dhiratho vijigye dhanur dvitīyaḥ kakubhaś chatusraḥ Aho pṛthāpi dhriyate rbhakārthe. Rājarṣi-varyeṇa vināpi tena. Yastva eka-vīro dhiratho vijigye. Dhanur dvitīyaḥ kakubhaś catasraḥ. Aho pṛthāpi dhriyate rbhakārthe. Rājarṣi-varyeṇa vināpi tena. Yastva eka-vīro dhiratho vijigye. Dhanur dvitīyaḥ kakubhaś catasraḥ. Vaishnavis. Aho, O my Lord, Pṛthā, Kuntī, Api, also, dhriyate, bears her life, arbhaka-arthe, for the sake of fatherless children, rājarṣi, King Pāṇḍu, Rājarṣi-varyeṇa, the best. Vināpi, without him. Tena, him. Yah, one who. Tu, but. Eka, alone. Vīraḥ, the warrior. Adhirathaḥ, commander. Vijigye, could conquer. Dhanuḥ, the bow. Dvitīyaḥ, the second. Kakubhaḥ, directions. Catasraḥ, four. Translation, kindly repeat. O my Lord, is Pṛthā still living? She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pāṇḍu, who was the great commander and who alone conquered the four directions simply with the help of a second bow. Purport. A faithful wife cannot live without her husband. Cannot live without her Lord, the husband, and therefore all widows used to voluntarily embrace the burning fire which consumed the dead husband. This system was very common in India because all the wives were chaste and faithful to their husbands. Later on, with the advent of the age of Kali, the wives gradually began to be less adherent to their husbands, and the voluntary embrace of the fire by the widows became a thing of the past. Very recently, the system was abolished since the voluntary system had become a forcible social custom. When Maharaj Pāṇḍu died, both his wives, namely Kuntī and Madri, were prepared to embrace the fire. But Madri requested Kuntī to live for the sake of the younger children, the 5 Pandavas. This was agreed upon by Kuntī at the added request of Vyasadeva. In spite of her great bereavement, Kuntī decided to live, not to enjoy life in the absence of her husband, but only to give protection to the children. This incident is referred to here by Vidura because he knew all the facts about his sister-in-law Kuntī Devi. It is understood that Maharaj Pāṇḍu was a great warrior and that he alone, with the help of bow and arrow, could conquer the world's 4 directions. In the absence of such a husband, it was almost impossible for Kuntī to live on even as a widow, but she had to do it for the sake of the 5 children. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschati Veshatarine Vancha Kalpataro Vaishya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O my Lord, is Pṛthā still living? She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pāṇḍu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the 4 directions simply with the help of a second bow. So these are, this chapter is called Questions by Vidura. The chapter begins with Vidura being insulted by Duryodhana, and he leaves the palace and he goes on a pilgrim to different parts of India, and eventually he meets, in the western part of India, he meets Uddhav, and he is inquiring about all his family members. So throughout this chapter, he is asking one by one, is this person doing well, is that person doing well, and last we saw how he was asking about Arjun. Now he is inquiring about Queen Kuntī. So this chapter is simply list of questions Vidura is asking about different devotees wanting to know their well-being. And here we are talking about Queen Kuntī. Her prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 8, are like flagship verses for devotees. Many devotees memorize those verses. And she is considered a great devotee, a role model for many of us. And the speciality of her situation was that she was constantly in some kind of trouble. Constantly something or other was happening with her. And in spite of all those things happening around her, she never gave up the shelter of Krishna. In fact, it was the opposite. More problems were coming, greater shelter she sought from Krishna. And in this verse, it is explained that a faithful wife cannot live without her Lord, the husband. And because all the wives were chaste and faithful to their husbands, they committed sati. They burnt with their husband. But we see here that even though Kuntī was very attached to Pāṇḍu, she was asked to live. And that is not easy. That is not a pleasant task for a chaste woman. And she accepted that task because she had the responsibility to guide her children in Krishna consciousness, because they already did not have their father. So she took up that big responsibility of guiding her children in Krishna consciousness. And we can see that the Pandavas, they all are excellent devotees of Krishna. And if somebody cannot do that, they shouldn't take up the role of Guru na sasyat, svajano na satyat, pita na sasyat, janani na sasyat. Don't become a janani. Cannot be, it is not good to become Guru or father, mother, husband, worshipable demigod, if you cannot deliver your dependence from the samupaityam mrityu, the repeated birth and death cycle. Yeah? So she was left with the task of guiding those young children so that they will be delivered from repeated birth. And dying is much easy. We who are parents, we know the challenges of bringing up children in Krishna consciousness. In Kali Yuga, of course, it's much more challenging, but the task is quite daunting. And not always the situation was favorable. Not everything was always in favor. And then to train that in spite of all of this, we are still going to remain devotee of Krishna, that requires a very deep level of conviction from the mother's side. The son was poisoned and he was thrown into river. They were put in a palace of Shalak and they were burnt. Yeah, that was at least the plan, that they will be burnt. And they were cheated. Their daughter-in-law was attempt was made to publicly humiliate. So constantly, there is something that happens that shakes up. What is happening? Why is it happening to me? Why is this bad thing happening to me? So it was, as the leader of the family, it was her task to hold them together and sustain their faith. and guide them to take shelter of Krishna in spite of all these calamities. And her power to take shelter of Krishna was so intense that she actually prayed to Krishna, I am praying to you, Krishna, that I will continuously have calamities. May all these calamities come again and again. Let there be lot of calamities. Why is it so? Because when there is calamity, you are there. And when you are there, then that is the end of repeated birth and death for us, so Srila Prabhupada, I will just read Srila Prabhupada's words from prayers of Queen Kuntī. This is verse 1.825. Vipadaha santu tat shashvat tatra tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yat syat apunar bhava darshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, this material world is certified by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. They have no information of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and without trace of calamity. The duty of the sane person, therefore, is to be undisturbed by the worldly calamities, which are sure to happen in all circumstances. Suffering all sort of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritual realization, because that is the mission of human life. The spirit soul is transcendental to all material calamities. Therefore, the so-called calamities are called false. A man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for this calamity. Actually, there is no tiger and there is no suffering. It is simply a case of dreams. In this way, all calamities of life are said to be dreams. If someone is lucky enough to get in contact with the Lord by devotional service, it is all gain. Contact with the Lord by any one of the 9 devotional services is always a forward step on the path of going back to Godhead. So this is the understanding that Mother Kuntī had. Calamities are non-existing for a devotee. These are adverse situations presented to us by the Lord as a great blessing. And they actually cannot impact one's consciousness if we are taking complete shelter of the Lord. And by taking shelter, we come out of this material world. We actually get complete protection of the Lord. So that is the logic that she taught herself and her children. And that is how they were able to go through the many sufferings without deviating from the path of Krishna consciousness. There is no situation where we would read that Yudhishthir was disrespectful to Bhishma Dev or even to Dhritarashtra, that he was inimical towards even Duryodhana and Dushasan. She had a devotee could train. We as devotees can take example from Mother Kuntī, that we should train our children that in spite of all these reversals, even towards the people who were causing those calamities, they did not exhibit enmity. You may kill them. they were killed. The 100 brothers were killed because that is the result of, that's a consequence for the action. But there is not a tinge of enmity in that action. It was done as a matter of duty, as a service to the Lord. Now, they did not do it because they felt like this is an enemy and we need to destroy them and we need to. So that is the ideal, the teachings of an ideal mother, how to take shelter of Krishna. It's not that she taught them to tolerate abuse, No, that wasn't the case. They stood up, they fought for what was right, but they acted from a very different platform. They did not act on the platform of body. You are my enemy, you are trying to harm me, you are taking away my kingdom and stopping me from doing my functional duty as a Kshatriya. No? They were acting on the profile of their foundational duty. That is where they acted from. As spirit soul, as servant of Krishna. I am doing this war and I am killing these 100 Kauravas and their supporters because that is the right thing to do. That is what pleases Krishna. And it is described that they would go in the evening hours to inquire, to go to the enemy camp and even talk and inquire about the well-being, So you can see that they were able to do the right thing, and even very tough things, somebody comes and says, take this bow, arrow, shoot your Guru Maharaj, I'm not going to do it, ever. But praying to Krishna, you never know what crazy mind can do. That is what I think. It will be very difficult to do that. No, that here, see who is there standing to fight. There's your Guru Maharaj, your dear grandfather, and Kripacharya is there. If Arjuna was shown Duryodhan, Dushasan, probably he would have fought more willingly. So Krishna was showing who are really standing. Your Guru Maharaj, your very dear grandfather who took the position of your father when you came back from the forest. And it was, Queen Kuntī was the root of this steadfast devotion that Pandavas exhibited. She as a mother guided them that they will act in Krishna conscious way throughout their life. Every step of our life, there is always choice. I will act in Krishna conscious way, I will not act in a Krishna conscious way. Pankaj Prabhu says it's not a one-time choice. Every step we have to act make that choice that I will act in a Krishna conscious way. And in order for us to do that, we have to be very chaste to Krishna. So there is another verse in prayers of Queen Kuntī where the same word chaste is used to refer to Queen Kuntī again. This is verse 17, 1.8.17. Brahma tejo vinirmukter atmajai saka krishnaya prayana bhimukham krishnam idam aha pṛthā sati. Thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kuntī, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. This is the beginning of prayers of Queen Kuntī. Kuntī is described herein as sati or chaste. Sati also refers to this practice where a woman voluntarily enters the fire of her husband's dead body because she is chaste. She cannot live without him. So sati also refers to this practice of entering fire. But Srila Prabhupada here gives, Kuntī is described herein as sati or chaste, and her chastity is due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. Her mind will now be expressed in the following prayers to Lord Krishna. A chaste devotee of the Lord does not look to others, namely any other living being or demigod, even for deliverance from danger. That was all along the characteristic of the whole family of the Pandavas. They knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was also always ready to help them in all respects and in all circumstances. And we can see that every time there was a problem for Pandavas, it was Krishna who was there first. The Duryodhan made a big feast for Durvasa Muni, and they were completely satisfied. And then Duryodhan said, "Oh, you have given us blessings by your presence in our palace. Kindly go and give blessings also to my cousins who are in the forest." And the time he sent them was the time that Draupadi had finished eating. And once she finishes eating, for the rest of the day, you will not get any food from her magical pot, the Akshaya Patra. Nothing will come, And there were 10,000 of them, all wanting to feast. And they just went to the river to bathe and come. And Krishna comes and he just picks up one leaf of green that was sticking to the pot. A small piece of food was there. And he ate it. And all of the 10,000 rishis felt completely satisfied. And they said, if we go there, we won't be able to honor prasadam. So let's just bath and just go away. Let's not even go there. So every time there was something big, to get the curse of Durvasa Muni is very dangerous. He is very easily displeased, very difficult to please. So constantly they were put in some kind of situation, and it was Krishna, and it was his protection that they came out of it. Draupadi, when they were trying to pull her sari, it was Krishna who protected her chastity. She had both her hands up. There's no more shelter for me. There's nobody else. Whatever you feel, Krishna, should happen to me, I am accepting it. And Dushasan had, when he was pulling the sari, he had a mountain of sari way bigger than the palace hall. So much of cloth came from the sari that he was pulling. And she wasn't wrapped with all of that, she wasn't going around with all that clothes. So Krishna provided that kind of protection, and that is the special training Draupadi by her personal example. And that's another thing that we learn as parents. We practice Krishna consciousness. We don't teach our children Krishna consciousness by telling. We teach our children Krishna consciousness by showing, by personal example. Otherwise, it is never going to be effective. Some of us may have children who are very inclined from their birth naturally, and no credit to us, and they may practice devotional life. But generally how it works is that children imitate what we do. And what starts as an imitation becomes a way of life. So and that level of surrender the Pandavas learned. Draupadi followed the example. Of course, all of them are individually great devotees themselves. They are associates of Krishna. That's aside, as the flagship of the family, she showed by her example how to tolerate the suffering, and he reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. One should not therefore look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods, but one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. Such a chaste devotee also never asks the Lord for help, but the Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. So that is the result of having devotion like Queen Kuntī. That we don't have to externally pray to Krishna to help us get rid of this problem or that problem. And that is another lesson we can learn from Queen Kunti's life. It is not that she was training her children to take shelter of Krishna so that their problems will be solved. She trained her children to take shelter of Krishna even if none of their problems are solved. Don't ask. It's like problems in material world are like the tiger in dream. They really have nothing to do with us. But taking shelter of Krishna is the real deal. So when there is a problem, you don't have to separately ask Krishna to protect you. You simply take shelter of Krishna and the protection is part of the package. And automatically you will be protected. Automatically you will be given. And Krishna will be anxious. For such a devotee, Krishna will be anxious to give you protection. Oh, what is this? Now they are sent to forest. Oh, what is happening? Krishna was actually there in the palace of Dwaraka when Draupadi's sari was pulled. And Krishna was feeling anxiety. What is happening? Rukmini Devi was asking, why, my lord, did you stop eating? Because my devotee is in trouble. They are troubling Draupadi. So that anxiety to protect is automatically the part of package. And Krishna will do it even without us to ask. So, summarizing, Queen Kuntī here, this verse, Queen Kuntī is, and the enquiry is about Queen Kuntī, and who lived for the sake of her fatherless children, and it was impossible for her to live without King Pāṇḍu. But she still took up the task of living in this world because she had the responsibility of guiding her 5 children in Krishna consciousness. And Kunti's life is an example of how there is always constantly something or other happening as a calamity, as a problem. And her take on it was that these calamities are a stepping stone towards Krishna consciousness, towards taking shelter of Krishna. They are not something that you should be afraid of, because in reality, they don't exist. They are like the tiger you see in your dream. There's no real harm coming. But if you use this calamity as an opportunity to take shelter of Krishna, you will go back home, back to Godhead. And the teaching further deepens where she says that we don't go to Krishna to seek protection. We go to Krishna to serve. And the protection and the anxiety to protect you is the part of package that Krishna will offer you when you unconditionally surrender. And as an ideal mother, she has lived by this teaching. And she has always, in every step, chosen Krishna and not any other shelter in this material world. And Srila Prabhupada, for this reason, calls Queen Kuntī as a chaste devotee. She is chaste because she is wife of Pāṇḍu, towards whom she was very attached. So much that she wanted to actually walk into the fire. But then she took up the thankless task, the daunting task of maintaining the children and taking them towards Krishna. So if we want to be parents, if we want to be guiding personalities, that is the guideline for us. We should act like Kuntī. We should train our children so that they will seek shelter of Krishna, not to get relief from some material problem, but to unconditionally surrender, totally detached, irrespective of whatever might be happening materially in their life. So that is the topmost level of shelter. And Queen Kuntī, by her personal example, has shown us that it's possible to live like that. Thank you very much. There are any comments or questions?
Thank you for a very wonderful inspiring level of Krishna consciousness that you were talking about. But this is Kali Yuga, and what they're describing is the prior Yuga, where people were so many times much greater than anyone in Kali Yuga, obviously. So I have experienced, even amongst my very close devotee friends, sometimes a calamity occurs. They don't have it in them to follow what you described practically. And they would say, oh, I'm not Queen Kuntī. I can't, and they just get so distraught. I even had one of my closest devotee friends, when a calamity occurred and her husband passed prematurely, it would appear, she started questioning her own faith in Krishna. Why would Krishna do this to me? So how would you give practical advice to devotees in the Kali Yuga that encounter calamities? Because we all do.
Calamities, as per Queen Kunti's verse 25, are like tiger in dream. But we cannot be unrealistic in our approach, because as much as it might be a dream, there is a trauma. Even if it is something that philosophically we may just categorize as a dream, the trauma is experienced and that is real. And to negate that will be an artificial imposition on mind. And Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on mind. Srila Prabhupada says that. So if we try to minimize that suffering, we are actually not supporting their pain. So we need to acknowledge that pain, that this is real. And we need to stand by them as they grieve. That we cannot use any philosophy on that part. But they need somebody with whom they can share their trouble, their suffering, somebody who hears them out. And many times what they say is, they may even say things like, I don't believe Krishna is God. I think I wasted my life following this process, They may even say things like that. And as friends, we should not judge them by those statements, because they are coming from a place of pain. And that is no way a reflection of whom they really are. Because Krishna consciousness is joyfully performed. So when they are not in a joyful state of mind, whatever they are saying is not said in the proper Krishna conscious state of mind. So we will never judge them as, blooped. Something came and they blooped. They're not blooping, they are asking for help. So we should validate, we should acknowledge that they're going through some real pain, which appears as real to them, and it actually does impact our physical body and mind in many ways. So it is real, even if it might be temporary, just as this material world is, So we acknowledge, we offer them the support that they need, and at some point when they feel supported enough, then we tell them, your husband would have died anyways. It's not that he was going to live forever. If he was not becoming sick, he would have lived longer, he would have practiced longer, he would have stayed together for longer, but eventually this separation it's something that you cannot stop. Either you would disappear from this world or he would disappear from this world, and that is the end of it. So the death element is not unavoidable, but what is disturbing is that it was unexpected. And that is the nature of material world, that things come unexpectedly, they get thrown on us. Sometimes you see the phone ringing and it's from like some number you don't know, it's not saved in your mobile, you feel like, oh my God, what is this now? You can expect something, somebody is going to say something that is going to like throw you off a little bit, or some people call you, and when they call you, like, oh my God, no, So that this is the nature of material world, that things will be thrown on us, and it will take some time for them to come to that level of composure. But we should not judge. We should offer them support, and we should treat their pain as not fictional. And mainly, we should not give some philosophical input at that point, because the mindset is that by us saying something philosophical, we may make them commit more offense. So better to just connect with them on a very personal level.
That was a very nice answer. Thank you. I just wanted to share very quickly a Srila Prabhupada story in this regards. There was a brother and a sister, very good friends of mine, who became devotees back in maybe 1967, 68. And the sister was married to a devotee. And he left her. Didn't leave Krishna consciousness, he just left being married. So she was very distraught and also confused. What should she do? And because her brother worked for the ISKCON Press, he was able to get her right in to see Srila Prabhupada. So they went in and she discussed, Srila Prabhupada, my husband is gone and I'm so young. Should the temple leaders arrange another marriage for me? That's what her question was, because she was only in her 20s. And Srila Prabhupada looked at her. Now, this can only happen if you have the greatest faith in your guru, and he's telling you this. But she did have the greatest faith in Prabhupada. So Prabhupada looked at her and said, yes, women should be married, but if you again get married, do you have any guarantee that the next husband will stay? Maybe he will also leave? You have any guarantee? And she said, no, Srila Prabhupada, there's no guarantee. So then Prabhupada told her, my advice to you, forget husband-wife business. You become, in your heart, married to Krishna. And your whole life now, just worship him, bring him everything that you do for Krishna as if he's your husband. She followed that advice for 40 years. She's such an amazing lady, devotee, my god sister. So that was a special time and place, circumstance where Prabhupada felt she could handle such an instruction. But that's a Prabhupada story. It's a true story. Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, सामवेद गौर भक्तवृंद की जय.